the Democratic Party is still in that mode, which is going to render them possibly an irrelevant party if they don't change.
Bill Maher just declared war on the woke left. Democrats are spiraling as their own allies jump ship. The party of JFK is dead, replaced by radical activists. Even liberals can't stand what the left has become. I'll tell you why this is just the beginning of their collapse.
Is this going to put you off?
I love it.
Okay.
I mean, I hate it, but I love it that you love it. I'm happy that you love it.
Thank you, Bill. So it feels like there's three things there. It's like there's Twitter or X and what it is now before and after Elon. And then there's Doge and how that's going. But my initial point about Tesla was
right.
These people who are driving Teslas and having their cars vandalized, they might have voted Democrat. These are electric vehicles, so there's a good chance.
Totally.
It's actually in Arizona, which is purplish, right? As a voting.
Yes, correct.
Right. So the chances that the person driving the EV is actually a Democrat I think is more likely. Than,
I mean, there's no excuse for vandalism or looting, and we can't. Again, I say we can understand it because of our history and because with Elon and that stuff. Can I understand?
Welcome back to Black Coffee Podcast. Bill Maher has finally broken ranks with the radical left. Now, for those who have followed Maher's career, this might seem surprising. He's been a fixture in liberal circles for decades. But as the Democratic Party continues its march toward the extreme left, even longtime liberals like Maher are jumping ship. What we're witnessing isn't just one man's opinion changing, it's a canary in the coal mine for the entire Democratic establishment. When Bill Maher is calling out your party's obsession with wokeness, you're in serious trouble. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell.
A government worker might be so infuriated that they key a Tesla. I totally can. I also say we have to be in a nation of laws and people living by laws, so you can't sanction it.
Right.
You can understand it, but not condone it. Either way. And the problem is that, it starts with setting a Tesla on fire, and then they're going to go, well, if they do that, we can attack a drag queen story hour. And that's how the Civil War starts.
Well, I think it might even be worse than that because in America, people carry guns. So now if you drive a Tesla, if I was an American and I had a gun, and driving a Tesla, I would now carry a gun because if you're going to get attacked. So what might happen, God forbid, is that someone attacks a Tesla while someone's driving in it and they get shot. And there you go. Then you've got a whole other...
I had a Tesla up until a couple of years ago. It had nothing to do with the controversy. It was well before that, but I'm sure glad I made the switch. The only reason I made the switch is because Mercedes made an electric car that was similar to the Tesla, but twice as much money, and you could see why it was twice as much. The Tesla is a very, very good car. I have no complaints about it. It was nice. I mean, I have complaints about all cars these days because they're just all too complicated and too much.
We're bringing you unfiltered conservative commentary 5 days a week. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Bill Maher recently made waves during his Club Random podcast and on his HBO show by completely dismantling the woke agenda that has consumed the Democratic Party. Now, I've been critical of Maher in the past. We definitely don't agree on everything, but when someone's right, they're right. Maher's core criticism is something I've been saying for years. The Democratic Party has abandoned traditional liberalism for a radical ideology that's alienating mainstream Americans. The old school liberal belief in a colorblind society has been replaced with an obsessive focus on race, gender, and dividing Americans into oppressor and oppressed categories.
A computer, and there's too many things that are nagging me and demanding I do this and do that and stupid shit for safety that makes it less safe. Like, God forbid you turn on the GPS in this car and it's just your screen is showing you why are you showing me the intersection that is right in front of my fucking windscreen, as you British would say.
Thank you.
It's just crazy. But okay, they're both very similar. But yes, the Mercedes is more luxurious, and they just took it up a notch. And I was like, well, I'm a rich motherfucker. What am I doing in this $80,000 Tesla when I can be in a $140,000 Mercedes Benz? I'm not some douchebag in $1 million Lamborghini. It's just a good car. But I'm glad I don't have a Tesla these days.
Well, and good thing you bought the German Merc before the tariffs came in.
Yeah, and when did Germans, like a Mercedes-Benz, ever have anything to do with Nazis?
So you won't be able to drive a Volkswagen. You can't wear Adidas or Puma because they were also,
Adidas.
Yeah, Adidas, yeah.
Hugo Boss, I think, made the uniforms, and I got to give it up. They were awesome. Nazi uniforms.
They're good suits.
So sharp.
Let me break down what's happening here. For decades, traditional liberals like Maher believed in principles like free speech, equality of opportunity, and judging people by their character rather than immutable characteristics. The new woke left has completely inverted these principles. Under traditional liberalism, the goal was to create a society where race didn't determine your destiny. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream was about character, not color. But what does the woke left believe? They argue that we should be hyper-focused on race in every situation. They've replaced equality with equity, which means guaranteed equal outcomes rather than equal opportunity. This shift hasn't happened in a vacuum. The Democratic Party has embraced these radical notions because they need to energize their base with increasingly extreme positions. They can't win on policy anymore, so they've turned to divisive identity politics.
Well, to say this, and I'm sure I'll get in trouble, but Italian fascist architecture, and nothing else about the fascism, but the architecture is beautiful.
Absolutely.
The train stations in Milan, and you go. Some of the buildings are
I
beautiful.
think neither one of us has any place in our minds for people who can't see keeping two thoughts in your mind at the same time. Yes, fascism is bad and the architecture was good.
It's sad that I still feel I have to caveat, and you still
You
feel
do,
like you have to
exactly.
caveat.
I feel the same way.
Isn't
And
that
it
a shame?
bugs me. It bugs me.
Do you think we're coming out of that now?
We are, but we'll never be fully out of it. There will always be the people in the rear guard, just like there are people who are still wearing masks, you know?
Yeah, I see
Once you
that.
start something, you get a certain amount of cult followers for anything, and then the true believers never die. I mean, a lot of people would say right now the Democratic Party is still in that mode, which is going to render them possibly an irrelevant party if they don't change.
What would you like to see from the Democrats, like, going forward?
Much more centrism, much more get rid of the woke baggage, you know. Old school liberal is what I usually describe myself as. But that's very often the opposite of woke. Woke would like people to believe that they're some sort of an extension of liberalism, but they're not. They're usually something that's quite...
Maher understands something that the Democratic establishment doesn't seem to grasp. Average Americans are exhausted by woke politics. When everyday people are struggling with inflation, crime, and border security, Democrats are focused on pronouns and racial grievance. Let's look at some numbers. In recent polling, what are the top concerns for American voters? Economy, inflation, crime, immigration. Now, what are the top issues the progressive wing of the Democratic Party talks about? Gender ideology, systemic racism, climate alarmism, and dismantling traditional institutions. There's a massive disconnect between what voters care about and what the Democratic Party is selling. And voters are noticing. We're seeing Hispanic voters, black voters, and working class voters of all backgrounds moving rightward. These were once reliable Democratic constituencies, but the party's embrace of radical woke ideology is pushing them away. Maher's warning that the Democratic Party risks becoming irrelevant isn't hyperbole. It's already happening. Look at the 2024 election results. Donald Trump significantly improved his performance with minority voters compared to 2020. Why? Because while Democrats were lecturing Americans about their privilege, Republicans were talking about jobs, safety, and opportunity. The fact is, most Americans, regardless of background, want the same things. economic security, safe communities, good schools, and the freedom to live their lives without government interference. The Democratic Party used to understand this. Now they're captive to radical activists who view mainstream America with contempt. One of the points Maher highlighted is how the woke left has moved from simple cancel culture to actual violence and destruction. Remember when leftist rage was limited to angry tweets? Now we're seeing Tesla vehicles vandalized, property destroyed, and even assassination attempts, all fueled by progressive rhetoric that demonizes political opponents. This escalation is dangerous and should concern every American. When you constantly tell people that their opponents are fascists, Nazis, or existential threats, you're setting the stage for violence. The left's rhetoric has real-world consequences. The irony is that the same people vandalizing Teslas because they associate Elon Musk with supposed fascism are perfectly fine with German car brands that have actual historical connections to the Nazi regime. It's not about principles, it's about conforming to the latest progressive target list. This selective outrage exposes the superficiality of woke politics. It's not about fighting genuine injustice. It's about signaling virtue to your in-group while punishing ideological enemies. And the Democratic Party is enabling this behavior by refusing to condemn it forcefully. What we're witnessing is a kind of religious fervor. The woke left has all the characteristics of a cult: unquestionable dogma, excommunication of heretics, cancellation, ritual confessions of sin, privilege acknowledgement, and a moral certainty that justifies extreme actions. Bill Maher, as an old-school liberal, recognizes this fanaticism for what it is.
Liberalism was, we should have a colorblind society and not see race at all. That's not what the woke believe.
Yeah, I would say it's
They're the opposite.
quite.
Let's put race at the front of everything.
Yep, absolutely. Oppressor and oppressed, sacred, make a sacred the oppressed. But I say it's kind of the difference between liberalism and progressivism. I don't know if you would identify ever as a progressive.
Well, now we're talking about words that have, when everyone hears these words, they in their minds have their own definition. That's the problem.
Right, quite.
Woke, I talked about this with John McWhorter on my show a couple of weeks ago. He's a brilliant linguist, and I was saying he's got a great book now about pronouns, because they're so in the news.
Maher offered the Democrats a roadmap back to relevance. Embrace centrism and shed the woke baggage. Will they listen? I doubt it. The activist base is too powerful, and the party leadership lacks the courage to stand up to them. Look at what happened to Democratic figures who tried to take moderate positions. They were immediately attacked by the progressive wing as sellouts or traitors. The party has created a purity test that makes moderation impossible. This is why I believe we're witnessing a historic realignment in American politics. They could stand up for free speech instead of censorship. They could embrace America's founding principles instead of constantly attacking our history and institutions. But they won't, because their base won't let them. Meanwhile, the Republican Party has evolved into a diverse coalition united by love of country, economic opportunity, and traditional values. We're the Big Ten party now, welcoming Americans regardless of race, religion, or background. I want to acknowledge the courage it takes for someone like Bill Maher to speak out against the excesses of his own side. In today's cancel culture environment, criticizing the left from within carries real risk to your career and reputation. Maher has built his brand on being provocative and honest, but even he has faced backlash for refusing to toe the progressive line. Unlike many of his peers who have capitulated to woke demands, Maher has stood firm in his principles. This is what intellectual honesty looks like. It means calling out extremism wherever you see it, even when it's coming from your own political allies. Maher recognizes that the woke capture of democratic politics is damaging not just to the party, but to the country. I've often said that America needs a healthy opposition. One-party rule isn't good for anyone. But for the Democratic Party to provide that healthy opposition, they need to reconnect with mainstream American values and abandon the radical ideologies that have captured their party. Bill Maher is offering them a lifeline, a way back to relevance. Will they take it? History suggests they won't. The grip of woke ideology is too strong, and the incentives within democratic politics all push toward greater extremism, not moderation.
But, woke is, I was saying, language is something you cannot control.
Yeah.
It's a living, breathing thing. The words change and the meanings change, and you cannot do a thing about it. It's literally crowdsourced. And the crowd changed the meaning of the word woke. It was originally something good, being alert to injustice, and it still has that meaning, but I'm sorry, it became the watchword for every kind of excessive woke bullshit thing, like, let's have penises in the women's swimming pool.
Yeah.
Have penises in the women's locker room.
Or let's cut off the genitalia of children.
Yes, that kind of stuff. And, it's not my fault that happened, but woke, progressive, liberal, I don't know what, I just know what I believe. And I know that, to answer your original question, is it going to go away? I don't think so. I don't think it ever goes away fully. And if the Democrats will either make the hard edge of it, they have so many opportunities to sister soldier this shit and just do something that would make Americans go, oh, you know what? Good, because Trump is starting to really make me nervous.
So what does this mean for our political future? I believe we're entering a period of Republican dominance at the national level. As the Democratic Party continues its leftward march, more moderate and independent voters will join our coalition. But this isn't just about winning elections. It's about reuniting our country around shared principles and values. The woke ideology is fundamentally divisive, pitting Americans against each other based on immutable characteristics. The Republican vision is unifying, focusing on what we have in common rather than what divides us. The task ahead for conservatives is to continue expanding our coalition while standing firm on our principles. We need to show Americans of all backgrounds that our policies will improve their lives, keep their families safe, and preserve the freedoms that make America exceptional. We should welcome former Democrats like Bill Maher, who recognize the dangers of woke politics. We don't need to agree on everything. A healthy debate is essential to a functioning democracy. But we can unite around core principles like free speech, equal opportunity, and love of country. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. I thought what we're witnessing isn't just a political shift, it's a cultural awakening. Americans are increasingly rejecting the divisive politics of the woke left and returning to the foundational values that unite us. Bill Maher's evolution reflects this broader trend. When even committed liberals can no longer stomach the excesses of progressive politics, you know a significant change is underway. That's all for today's episode of Black Coffee Podcast. If you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with friends who need to hear this message. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read everyone. And remember, stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for an America that honors our traditions, respects our freedoms, and provides opportunity for all. Until next time, this is Black Coffee Podcast, where the truth might be bitter, but it's always served hot.